Good evening. Welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the program this evening, we examine the US decision to curb H-1B visas, the move significantly impacting Indian professionals aspiring to work and to live in America. With tighter visa caps, Indian tech workers, for example, face shrinking opportunities in Silicon Valley, potentially redirecting talent to other countries, potentially Canada. Now, this policy could, among other things, delay family reunifications. It could exacerbate green card backlogs for Indians, with wait times already stretching over a decade. You heard that right. Now, US firms may pivot to remote hiring of Indian citizens who are in India or step up local hires. I mean, that'll almost happen, more local hires. But the big question is this: are Indian professionals essentially no longer wanted in the United States, a country where they've been incredibly successful? Is the American dream all but over for many? That's the big debate on Left, Right and Centre. I'll be joined by Ambassador Timothy Romer. He's been an American ambassador to New Delhi some time back, someone who really helped build that relationship. But first, I've got Douglas Rand, a former senior advisor at the Office of the Director of USCIS, which deals with United States citizenship and immigration. I'm also joined by Sahil Niyati, who's an immigration expert. Thank you both very much for being with us. Mr. Rand, let me come to you first. I think besides anything else, and I am aware that the H-1B changes which have now happened mean that those in the future who apply for H-1B visas, them or their sponsors would need to pay $100,000. But I think the question that many in India are asking is America no longer interested in Indian professionals? Does America no longer want Indian professionals who've done so much for prosperity in your country? How would you respond?
Well, I would say unequivocally, America as a nation, as a society, as an economy, still very much appreciates and welcomes the contributions of immigrants from India, especially, and other countries as well. We have a president right now who clearly feels a different way and is pursuing a really regrettable, very damaging nativist strategy. But America is not just its government, and governments change. So I know that this is a very uncertain, very intimidating, incredibly frustrating time for people who have that American dream and want to come here and seize it. But please know that most Americans, I would argue, even many who voted for Donald Trump, did not see this coming and still welcome your talents and contributions.
You know, Doug, what strikes me is that this operates or this impacts American interests at so many levels. For example, a lot of students, the largest cohort of international students, are Indian. Many of these students from India come to the United States with the hope that they get a green card and then a hope that they get an H-1B. And of course, it's a lottery. It's very, very difficult. But the moment you deny ultimately an H-1B, nobody's going to cough up $100,000 by way of a sponsored visa in the future. Then it also means that students coming into the American system from India are going to be dissuaded from coming. So that doesn't help America at all, does it?
No, of course. It's a massive self-inflicted wound, totally unnecessary and wrong-headed. We're already seeing the immediate economic damage as international student enrollment across our universities is going down, and it probably will be even worse in the future. My hope is that it's not a permanent wound, a permanent damage to the U.S. economy and to the U.S. brand. We'll have to see. But I do want to point out one thing. This change that was hastily announced in the Oval Office on Friday night was a shambles. It has not gone into effect in any meaningful way. And I would venture to guess that it's not going to go into effect in any meaningful way because it's patently unlawful. And again, America is more than the president. America's got a lot of good litigators. And I believe that this policy of effectively banning H-1B workers from other countries is not going to survive first contact with our court system.
Sahil, is that your sense as well, that this will end up in the courts sooner than later and it's legally challengeable?
Yeah, 100%. I think Doug is absolutely right on it. I think this will be challenged in the court. I know AILA has already started a few motions. I also think the way this proclamation is written, it's very poorly written. There's a bunch of elements in here which can't be decoded really. you have an element which says for workers outside the US. Does that mean people who are already in US gets an exemption? There is also an NIW exemption, which is stated in there. There has been clarifications that this is not going to apply to renewals and people who already have H1s. What happens to people who do a change of status from H1 to H4 and then back to H1? I think there's like a bunch of caveats before this could actually go into motion. So I do believe like this will be challenged, and I eventually think like a lot of what's mentioned in this proclamation would become would claw back, I think. So
Sahil, how in talking to students who seek ultimately a green card and obviously an H1B as well, do you believe that there is, perceptibly less interest? And do you believe that a large number of Indian students already in America studying, it could not just bachelor's but masters, PhD students who felt that they had a chance in America now have to come back, and all of a sudden all of their dreams of at least getting a shot of staying in America, that's evaporated. And obviously for these people, it means that they've spent crores of rupees, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's a great education, a great experience, but then it's not where they ended up wanting to be.
yeah, no, for sure. I think if we look at from their perspective, it might seem unfair. But again, this is not in effect yet. I do believe a lot of this is gonna change. The fear is real though. We have a lot of students who have reached out to us over the last couple of days. People who are on STEM OPT. I actually talked to someone this morning whose H1B was picked for this particular lottery and was about to get active in October 1st, who got laid off. So there's a fear in employers as well, and not just within the community. Students are trying to look for other options on how they can stay within US. So yeah, definitely a fear, but again, like I want to clarify that some of this might not just come into effect. So just please be patient and
have to wait and see. Look, I'd like to thank both of you for joining us because we've got some breaking news now coming in. The Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar is meeting the Secretary of State Marco Rubio right now in New York. And there are lots of issues to be discussed between India and America, not least of all the trade negotiations which are taking place. And I'm just going to run through a couple of those key points as we bring our viewers this breaking news. The Secretary of State, Dr. S. Jaishankar, meeting the Secretary of State Marco Rubio in New York. This comes at a time when India and America are back at talking as far as a trade deal is concerned. It does mark somewhat of an effort to right a ship which was listing quite significantly after a lot of statements made by Donald Trump and his White House advisor, Pete Navarro, among others, which really did have an impact on the relationship. But there is a sense that after very warm exchanges between the President and the Prime Minister on Prime Minister Modi's birthday, that things could be sorted out. But there is not just the trade talks that the two leaders would perhaps be alluding to. There are other issues which need to be sorted out. America has concerns on India continuing our work at the Chabahar port, which is an Indian entity in Iran. So that's a cause of concern. And then this H1B shock, as it were, which has been fiercely resisted at so many levels, will that come up as well? But I did speak about a lot of these issues to the former US ambassador to New Delhi, Tim Romer, somebody who's been a strong votary of ties between the two countries. Here's what he told me. Well, these are interesting times for the India-US relationship. We've seen a lot of ups and downs, but perhaps things are getting more in order. But now there's this latest shock when it comes to H1B visas and Indians applying for those in the future. Joining us, a very special guest, Ambassador Tim Romer knows India extremely well. He's been the former US, he is the former US ambassador to New Delhi. Thanks, Ambassador Romer, very much for being with us.
Always a pleasure.
Ambassador, now I do know that there's been an amendment and there's been a clarification, and so if you are in the US on an H1B visa, then you don't have to pay $100,000. But how would you respond to those who say that, look, I look upon America, with the hope that I can work there. I'm a green card, I have a green card visa, I aspire to an H1B. There are a lot of those people who feel that America is just not welcome for them. How would you respond to that concern?
Well, first of all, I think that in both countries, on both sides, the Indian side and the United States, we all need to take a collective breath. We all need to pause a moment. We all need to reflect on this absolutely historic trajectory in the depth and then the big difference in the relationship between India and the United States. How much has it improved over the last 25 years, from defense to technology to people ties to education? We are going through a little churning right now. We're sitting back down at the negotiating table on trade and tariff issues. And then, as you mentioned, this surprise announcement on a $100,000 fee on new H-1B visas, not on existing ones, not on travel back and forth currently, but on new ones, causes a hiccup in the relationship. And hopefully, once we get through these trade negotiations, which are going to be, maybe promising, we're over 200 billion in two-way trade between the two countries. That was an earth-shattering number 15 years ago. Nobody thought we'd get to where we are today, especially in defense and technology trade. So take the breath. Let's get back down to the negotiating table. And maybe once we have some kind of economic progress on trade and a win-win proposition, then this H-1B visa issue can be revisited.
Do you think one is linked to the other, that if India does conclude a successful trade negotiation or a trade deal, one that works for America as well, then this can come back onto the table, perhaps, as a negotiating point? It's been denied at this stage. Is that what you're suggesting?
Certainly President Trump's 25% additional trade tariff announced in late August was something that I think was a negotiating point to get people back to the table, to get the negotiations back on track, to try to make progress on a trade deal. Look, India has done a trade deal with the UK. They've done one with Australia in the last few years. Israel, they've come to some new negotiations with Israel. Certainly the United States, with all we have in trade and interests and technology, chip manufacturing, clean energy, this is something we can get to. Then the president will probably look again at this H-1B visa. Two things could happen. The courts could weigh in. The courts may say that the president has overextended on this H-1B visa. And the second thing is that Congress could weigh in and say, this is our purview. We are the ones that set the number of H-1B visas. It's at 85,000 a year now. There is no real fee other than the 5,000. We want to take back our power, and we're going to have something to say about U.S.-India relations.
Ambassador, there's a knock-on effect of this as well. Any number of young Indians who go to the United States to study with the aspiration of getting a green card and then eventually living out the American dream, getting an H-1B. Do you not believe that this can diametrically impact, at the very onset, the number of young Indians getting into American educational institutions, which could economically hurt America as well, considering the fact that the number of Indians as international students is the largest international cohort, among students in the world?
I agree with almost everything you just said. Certainly, this convergence of strategic vision about how the U.S. and India sees the world, we have come together over the last 15 or 20 years. We've seen China's rise as something that we have to keep a careful eye on. We've seen democratic values be something that both countries are very concerned about. We have strengthened our people-to-people ties. One of the great things about the U.S.-India relationship is we start our constitutions with the same very important words. We, the people, are in charge, not a king, not some kind of crown or anything else. So all those things strengthen this relationship. I believe as we sit down at the trade negotiating table, we also have to put two other things on the table to talk about and get through. One, you alluded to it,
We have 300,000 Indians in our American schools. That is a very positive thing. It's positive when Indian students end up going back to India to work. They've had a great experience in the United States. That brings us closer, regardless of where they go. The second is many of these Indian students end up getting a master's and a PhD, and we can stamp that green card then on their H-1B visa. I think we can do that to 15 or 20,000 students per year. That creates American jobs. That is a job multiplier for the United States. A great study, but all kinds of studies confirm this, but a really, really profound study about 15 years ago by Duke and the University of California said that almost 25% of new jobs in technology are created by these students that stay in the United States after they got a master's and a PhD, and they become CEOs. They're in the C-suite. They develop unicorns. They create business that then creates hundreds, if not thousands, of US jobs. So that's something I hope President Trump will understand, that this is a good thing, not just for US-India relations. It is a great thing for US job creation. Manufacturing jobs are created in America by those H-1B visa people getting their masters and PhDs and staying in America. And it creates stronger links in the diaspora between our two great countries.
Ambassador, the other sort of negative which has emerged from an India standpoint in the last 1 week or so is America saying that as far as Chabahar port in Iran is concerned, it may be off limits because America may be sanctioning Iran even more. And therefore, the rights that India seemed to have, despite the sanctions which existed in the past as well, appear to be disappearing. Now, that's again a problem because Chabahar is a gateway into Afghanistan. India has, as you know, very deep strategic concerns and interests in Central Asia through Afghanistan. And therefore, is that not another setback in this relationship?
It's certainly something we have to talk about, and it's certainly something that both sides have to respect the other for their strategic autonomy, right? The United States needs to be able to say on occasion to India, as our good friend and strategic partner, we understand when we have set up a purchasing process with a cap on it for oil, and that India wants to buy inexpensive oil for their citizens, and we approve that process, that we're going to have some differences there, but it's not going to ultimately set back our strategic relationship. On the same hand, India gets all upset about the United States talking to Pakistan and accusing us of going back into some kind of a, hyphenated relationship or a pivot to Pakistan. We're just trying to have a good relationship with them, just like India wants to have a good relationship with China or Russia. There has to be more understanding on the India domestic side, and I hope India does not play the Pakistan card every time the United States wants to sit down and just smooth out their relationship with Pakistan. So we both have to be more understanding. We have to sit down at the diplomatic table, understand why we want to have different good relationships with various countries in the world, and then work through some of these other issues. And then, most importantly, reflect on how this relationship has grown and deepened and strategically made the world a better place. Defense trade has increased between the United States and India dramatically. Technology trade has, exchange of all kinds of new technology. We should sit down and negotiate a new AI and chip manufacturing partnership. We have the Quad, which has deepened and grown over the last 20 years. We have military exercises. We have clean energy arrangements. We have higher education. We have space arrangements. All those things, we have $200 billion a year in two-way trade. That was not on the table 20 years ago.
No,
So
Ambassador,
let's
I
keep
hear
all
you.
these positive things in mind, and let's sit back, negotiate, not try to get on TV all the time and call each other names. We have a great, healthy relationship. We're going through a little bit of a hiccup here. Let's iron this out.
All right, Ambassador, appreciate your comments. Let's hope these hiccups do go away, but it just seems that one positive step ends up being one negative step somewhere. And yes, there are sensitivities, obviously, on both sides, which need to be figured out. But thanks, Ambassador Romo, very much for joining us with you.
Always a pleasure. Good talking with you.